Calling the Library Commission meeting to order. It is 6:30. Welcome to the November 25, 2024 special meeting of the Library Commission. This is a hybrid meeting with commissioners, city staff, and members of the
I'm so sorry. Got this thing set up here.
You just turn your volume down.
It's not doing it. Oh,
There we
it would
go.
help if I turn the volume down, not up.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry about that.
All right, so this is a hybrid meeting with commissioners, city staff, and members of the public participating in person at the Menlo Park Library in accordance with public health guidelines for in-person meetings and the public participating remotely. So start with a roll call. Commissioners present include Michael Herrick, me, Carol Orton, the chair, David Pollock, Scott Schaefer, Brian Westcott, and Jennifer Wise. Staff present include Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhart, Assistant Library and Community Services Director Nick Shegda, LCS Supervisor Rose Walton, there you are, Senior Program Assistant John Weaver, and Librarian Ella Hadrovich. There you are. Nick will be helping facilitate the meeting. Nick, will you please take a moment and provide instructions to the commission and members of the public in attendance on how a meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair. For members of the public who are attending this meeting virtually and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Members of the public attending remotely who wish to speak, please take a moment to make sure your first and last name are updated on Zoom, or you may provide your name and the spelling as you are called to speak. Public comment will be heard in the order received and is limited to 3 minutes each. For members of the public attending in person, there are speaker cards available on the table to my right. You can complete one and turn it into me before public comment is called for the item you wish to speak on. If there are a large number of public commenters, the time limit may be adjusted by the chair in order to allow everyone a chance to comment. When your turn for online public comment has arrived, staff will unmute you. And with that, I'll return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you, Nick. We're starting with a presentation from library staff on library programming. Staff members Rose Waldman, John Weaver, and Ella Hadrovich will make the presentation.
Let me pull up my screen here, guys.
To our guest here, so it's kind of, we can sort of pull this way a little bit, I think. All right, yes, so we were somewhat introduced via the roll call, and in the interest of starting afresh,
Hang on a second, Rose.
oh, I will wait.
My presentation went a little funky.
That's okay. We'll just stand here getting increasingly anxious.
Well, I'm gonna have to vamp a little bit. I had a fancy setup.
Well, we can certainly introduce ourselves whilst
There we go.
you
There we
speak
go.
out. Oh, good.
There.
All right, so my name is Rose. I'm not unfamiliar to you at this point. Nice to see all of you. Yeah, my job is fairly all encompassing in the sense that I make sure that people are where they are supposed to be when they are supposed to be there, and that they know how to do what they're supposed to be doing. Which is a very glib way of putting it, but moving on, you've already met John. Would you reintroduce yourself?
My name is John Weaver. My job here involves much of the programming with the library.
My name is Ella Hadrovich. I'm the team librarian here. So my first time being all of you. It's nice to meet you. I handle our team programming, and I'm also a member of our Storytime training team, along with other librarians.
All right. And with that, welcome back to our library presentation series, which you can see the full rundown of on the screen. A couple of months ago, we had our library overview. This month, we are talking about library programming, the range of active learning and enrichment opportunities supplemental to physical or e-resources and information that are offered here at the library, synchronously in our library or online. Note, by the way, before we move on, that in this series here, we've gone ahead and switched the last two in the order at the request of the commission. So in May, we will be talking about what's next for libraries and MPL. And then in June, we'll be talking about the library budget, collection development, and operations. So that's business. And on to what we're talking about this evening, library programming. So, as you can see, we've once again drawn on our David Lanke's, wonderful book, The Atlas of New Librarianship. Bad libraries build collections, good libraries build services, of which a collection is only one, and great libraries build communities. And that's really he's a clever guy, couldn't say it better myself. That's the basis behind what we're going to be talking about today in terms of our in-library and online programming. I'm so sorry, I will do it a minute first. So libraries are more than just books. I think that we've made that abundantly clear at this point. What I will say is there is far too, when we sat down, the three of us, to say, all right, what do we want to tell the Library Commission about library programming? We realized we could talk for 2 hours and not get through everything that we want to say. It's something that all three of us are excited about and put a lot of time and work in our professional lives into. But we have 20 minutes. So we decided to focus on a representative sample of our programming. Specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about what program engagement looks like, sort of why library programs, but also what does the engagement look like. We're going to talk a little bit about our teen engagement. We're going to talk a little bit about our story times and story time training. And we're also going to offer you a few statistics and a little bit of information about how we staff these programs. But there's much, much more. So you will notice that our slides are packed with information. The reason that they are so word heavy is so that hopefully you will be provided with more information than we can give you in these 20 minutes. And if you see things that are of interest to you, please do not hesitate to sing out and ask us questions. We encourage you to ask questions, make a note, we can come back to things, because that can sort of direct the Q&A section of this. All right, and with that, I'm gonna hand it over to my colleagues. That's quite enough of me.
So libraries are books and people and connections and community, and we recognize that people have different ways of taking in information, they have different ways of learning, and so we try to touch upon as many of those as we can. And one of the things we do to recognize learning styles is our programming. We try to satisfy their curiosity and even spark further curiosity in different ways. We add depth, texture, and context to book learning, and we lead participants to our other resources. So somebody coming to a program might end up in front of a book display, might end up getting recommendations from staff, or even other people attending the programs at the library. Our youth and family programs bring school assembly style programs to the entire community. And by school assembly style programs, I'm talking about the kind of thing that used to be much more common in schools, but maybe not so much today. Science demonstrations you see at the bottom of the photo collage there. There's music, hands-on music programming. A lot of people miss school maybe for one reason, and it's that kind of assembly where they'd have an animal or wildlife presentation at their school and they'd get to learn that way, which is great for people who cannot afford a trip to a zoo or the timing doesn't work for the family to go together. When we bring in wildlife presentations, especially during our summer reading programs, people get an educational experience as they get to see an animal up close and learn about their habits and habitats. One thing I don't want to miss out here is to talk about just for a moment our, our, our ESL club, where people is in the English Conversation Club, where people, they get to create their own community by meeting people from around the world who speak different languages, but they get to share culture and create their own community here in Menlo Park as they get used to being in a whole new situation. So that's one of our oldest programs here, and it's been very successful for that kind of cultural sharing that people get to do. And as we go along, we'll talk more about the cultural sharing that happens in our programs. Program attendees learn from the other available resources. They get to know the staff as well, and we start to recognize people as they come to all the different programs that we offer. Next slide, please. And it's that engagement that we really value. We're building communications and community connections. We listen to our patrons, we learn more about them, and they learn about us, and we share those experiences for everyone. One of our big successes started a few years ago when Sean suggested, hey, we should have a seed library, and we should have some gardening programs to tie in with that. And I said, well, I think that I can start that out by getting the word out at our program. So one of our existing programs, when I was making my long commercial announcements beforehand about all the things we've got going on here at Menlo Park Library, I mentioned the fact that we're looking at having a seed library program. And by the end of that program, somebody had walked up to me and said, I'm a master gardener. And I have a friend who I'm sure would like to join me. And those two people, ever since, they are running our seed library for us. They do everything from buying the seeds and labeling the seeds to giving our monthly talk on the first Wednesday of each month over Zoom. So it's been a very successful collaboration just from being here on site with the community. This is much more recent, the next thing that I have in there, and that's a couple of weeks ago, we had an event at our new Bellhaven Library. It was a beading workshop to recognize Native American Heritage Month. I had a coordinator from the Native American Center over in the Tri-Valley teach us about beading and its importance in Native American communities. And we had a father and a daughter, a teen daughter who had brought her father along, and we encouraged him to join in, and he did. And we had senior citizens taking part. Then this 20-something young man comes in, and he was there for this event. And he mentioned how valuable it was for him, how good it was to have something he could do with his hands that was not keyboard related. He works in Menlo Park in tech, and he's just looking for that. And so he loved sitting there and talking with the other people and making that connection. And he gave us some tips for when the good time is to get the tech bros to come and join us for something like that. So that's definitely noted as we're planning future events. The cultural programming often brings in first-time users of our library. One of the programs there is the Odyssey Dance, which is on the middle and the right-hand column. It's one of the Indian art dances. And when things like that happen, we get this great inflow of people who in part were following the performers around. And so there's this community that gathers right here in the library, and they get to talk about their culture. They get to see each other. They get to enjoy seeing their culture reflected in the library. And that's an important part of what we do. Another thing that happened along those lines was a few weeks before that, when we were celebrating Filipino Heritage Month, and an artist came to show the batik style art that is used in woven mats and tattoos. And we had not just Filipino people and people who love doing art, but we even had Indonesian people coming. And there was this, between a few different groups, exchange of language. And they were talking about, oh, we say this for this word, oh, you do too. And it's a great way to do that. We have a lot of people coming in who might not be coming in because they want to check out a book or because they know what they want to learn about, but they stumble upon something often here at the library and they want to know more. And so they can enjoy learning about it firsthand from our experts, and they can be referred to it by our staff to our collections, to our online resources that we have. Hey, Ella.
I'm going to talk a little about teen programming now. Something that I wanted to say just going into this is that there's been a fair amount of turnover in the teen librarian position. So when I started nearly a year ago in December, it'll be a year. Very excited about that. There have been 4 teen librarians in 2.5 years. That's a lot of turnover. Because of that, our programming was not as consistent as it could have been, both in what we offered to the public and what we had for our volunteer groups. So because of this, when I came into the role, I really wanted an opportunity to talk to teens and learn what they wanted from their library programs, volunteer opportunities, and collection. And I saw programming as a really great way to do this. I was looking to create programming that would show teens how to interact with library spaces and library staff, would provide important social experiences, and would also allow for teen input to drive our collection and offerings. And so I did this through a mix of programmings. We have passive programming, so it says some things up there, but one thing that's been very successful is we have a couple Dungeons and Dragons groups that meet regularly here in the library, and they use the teen space, and it's wonderful. They're very excited. They have a great time gaming. And one of our librarians, Nora Mercer, they came back from a conference and suggested that we start putting dice in the teen zone and using one sheets that would make Dungeons and Dragons more accessible to people who might not be as familiar with it, and also easy tabletop games. So we implemented that, and it's had huge success. In conjunction with that, I've also started a teen reference collection, and something that I wanted to do was provide Dungeons and Dragons manuals in there because they're really expensive. And they're also kind of heavy to carry around, and we see them used frequently by the teens in the space. And so that's a really great way to make them feel more at home in the space and show that we're listening to them and trying to provide what they come to the library for to make it easier to them. We've also had some other fun teen passive programming, so coloring sheets on the tables, and also most recently some themed posters. So right now at our Belhaven Library, we have a Who Would Win poster on the wall, which for those of you who might not know, Who Would Win is a children's book series by Jerry Pelota, where it's who would win, you know, killer whale versus great white shark. But instead of using animals like the children's book series, we had our teen advisory group pick fictional characters. So right now it's Snow White versus Lord Farquaad. And Lord Farquaad is overwhelmingly winning. There are Post-it notes all over the place. In fact, one of our librarians put up a Post-it note for Snow White, and the teens have spoken. They took it down. They did not recognize that. So it's been a really fun way for teens to engage with the space there without staff actually being in the room, which is, I think, a really important thing. The teen space is teens only, 12 to 17, and I want them to feel safe and comfortable in that space. But we also want to get staff in the space, and that's where active programming is really helpful and comes in. And so we've been doing active programming through our teen films and now video game sessions. Originally, it was Teen Film Wednesdays and Teen Film Fridays. Starting in November, it's become Teen Media Wednesdays and Teen Media Fridays, and we've added gaming into the mix. Right now, we're playing on the Nintendo Switch, which has been very fun and successful. And in December, we'll be doing only video games for 1 month, just because it's the end of the year and it's a lot of fun. Also, over the summer, when I was designing summer programming and talking with our teen advisory group, they were interested in gaming. So we had a teen Mario Kart tournament that happened at both libraries at the exact same time, which was a pretty cool thing. On August 17th, we had the program going for 2 hours at our Belhaven Library and 2 hours here at the Menlo Park Library at 800 Alma. And we had 5 teens in both spaces for the event. That's pretty good engagement for a teen program. But what I think is most notable when talking about social experiences is that here at this library, 3 of the 5 teens who came in were homeschooled. And one of the teens actually said that he had a Switch at home and he came to the library because he wanted to play with other teens. And so that shows that there really is this desire to be in communal spaces and interacting with other teens. And part of what I'm trying to do with interacting with teens is find out how to give them those experiences and to make it more accessible to them. We also have a pretty sizable video game collection here that is not accessible to everyone who doesn't have gaming systems at home. So how do we provide access to that? So I've had a lot of fun with our teen programming. Outreach has also helped increase our programming. So this past year, I've tabled at quite a few Feel Good Fridays, which for those of you who don't know, they're special lunchtime sessions at Menlo Atherton High School, where the library can come in and give out some free books and talk about what's going on. And I've also been interviewed twice by the MA Chronicle this year and talked to them about what the library offers, because what I've realized is that a lot of teens are interested in what the library offers. They just don't know that it offers anything. And so if we're going there and we're talking to them, they're starting to realize all the fun things they can do here. And I've seen engagement from that. One of the interviewers is now a part of our teen advisory group and volunteers with us, which is really great. And another one of the people who interviewed me is now interested in our teen book group, which will be hopefully starting at the beginning of the new year. And it's another way for teens to gather in the space and talk about books and spend time together.
So that's a preview of our outreach presentation.
Yes, just a tiny bit of it. So to sum it up, really one of my biggest goals with teen programming is having teens feel comfortable in their space and having a say in the library's offerings. The Teen Zone, like I said, is for teens only. And so these programs also allow me to enter the space and to talk to teens and engage with them while still giving them their time outside of the scheduled programming time. And it's a really valuable opportunity for me to gather feedback on what's currently working and how we could better serve them going forward. And now I'm gonna turn it over.
Story time. I like to call Storytime Baby's First Book Group. It's a great chance to get together and enjoy books together and literacy together and learn together. And it's a great chance for the adults, the caretakers, the parents and grandparents to have that socialization with each other and among their children. And it encouraged them to read to their kids. We have this successful in-house training program. It was born of the pandemic. During the lockdown period, we wanted to get back to it. We wanted to continue to offer story times, even though nobody knew when they'd be able to leave their home and get to a library story time again. The pandemic shut down also.
Sorry, we experienced, as many organizations did, we experienced a staff turnover during the pandemic. And so we had to create a storytime training program because you tell the story. I should have done it.
It's fun. As Rose was foreshadowing there, we lost a lot of staff. Most of our story timers were gone. We had 1.5, I guess. And Rose was one of our first students. And so we took the stuff we did have and we had online Zoom sessions with each other. The only way you can do Zoom. And we talked about the elements of storytelling and at that point, how to do it to a camera. But back on site here at Menlo Park Library, people were very excited to come back to story time. So we'd taken on these classes of colleagues and taught them the elements of a great story time, the way to relate to people and being very intentional in the choices we make when we're choosing a book. It's early literacy, anti-bias, and we help each other make those choices. And so we've graduated 5 classes so far, more ongoing all the time. Anytime we get new people joining us at the library, we're kind of eyeing them and thinking, hey, how do you feel about getting the story? And they let us know how they feel, and we help them get to that point. And so people, when they come to a library for a story time, and we've got story times at both library locations and at the city-run child development centers, people don't necessarily know who they're going to get when they sit down on the floor, but what they do get is a positive experience by trained story timers. And what I really value about this is very unusual to have such a huge number of story timers, but they get this idea that, oh, wait, the way this guy reads to me is different than the way this person does. And we were having a conversation recently about, wow, you read that book totally different than the other person does, but they're both really great renditions. We want people to know, the grownups who bring their kids in, we want them to know that it's good for them to read to their kids and they don't have to worry about being perfect or whatever. There are many wonderful ways to read to children. What children need to see is their adults reading to them. And so we have many different ways of doing that. And we've gotten so much feedback, both from our trainees and from the community who are really enjoying this experience. And it's one thing we're really proud of that we've turned up since we've reopened.
So one of the, just to sort of, we're still on story time, sorry.
We're all gonna talk on this one.
We'll wrap it up, I promise. But so just to sort of tie together a couple of concepts that John was mentioning. The goal with having an in-house training program that we have really workshopped and made sort of modular, is that it allows us to have 15 different story timers who all have their own style and who all read different books, but to have a core same way that we provide story time and a core same values that we choose our books with. So just to, and
I'm gonna speak a little bit more about the in-house training program briefly. So as we've talked about, this is a very intentional program, and we like to talk about why we choose the books we choose, why we choose the songs we choose, and how to emphasize early literacy techniques. And so this training program typically takes about 8 to 12 weeks. And during that, small groups of story timers and trainers meet and discuss our book choices, our songs. We practice sharing story times back and forth, and all of our trainees actually observe public story times throughout this as well. They go to the story times here and at our Belhaven Library, and they also attend the story times at our child care centers to see what the type of story time we like to share is, and more importantly, how the public will interact back with us, because that's something that I think can unnerve people the first time they're going in. And so learning how to work with the crowd is really important. And it also gives us the opportunity for, I was one of the early graduates from this new Storytime program, to share the experiences I've had, but also as a trainer, I value so much being able to meet with the new trainees and learn new things from how they're sharing their stories, what songs they pick, what they might have done in past jobs that we can use here in our program. And so it's a very valuable experience in terms of education and also in building a community. By doing so, we do have a tight-knit group of storytimers who will come to each other outside of meetings as well to get advice and feedback on story times. And it takes something which is a really fun experience, but in some ways can be a little bit stressful, and gives everyone more confidence and make them feel more comfortable when they decide to share this with the public.
Yeah, we've gotten feedback that from other, from our hourly librarians who've gone on to work at other libraries or who have other jobs at other libraries. Many of our hourly staff work at more than one library. And we've gotten feedback, they're like, oh, we're so glad that we had this experience at Menlo Park, because they just threw books at me and said, go. And I wouldn't thrive under those conditions myself, so I'm glad that we do it.
Yeah, it's just been a really wonderful experience for all of us all three of us are part of the training.
Yeah,
team.
we're 3/4 of it, so, all right. And final. All right, a little bit of information, statistics and staffing. All right. So how do we staff these programs? Well, some of our staff all of our staff are experts in something. In general, if we have story times, we have book groups, we're gonna staff those things in-house because we have staff who are experts in the field and who are able to provide a high level of service in that regard. Now, if we have a chamber orchestra come in, well, now we may have some staff members who play classical instruments very beautifully, but you sort of see my point. We do not want to limit our offerings to what our staff can provide, because in general, we are more or less experts in information and literacy. We can find stuff for you. We're very good at that sort of thing. We love to talk about information and data and books also. But we want to make sure that our community has access to lots of types of programming. So that is where John trolls the many presenters that are in the area. Oh, that's what I meant.
Trolling is what I do on Nextdoor.
Yeah. The many presenters in the area and beyond. Now since the pandemic, we still have some Zoom events, so we are able to visit zoos in other places. We're able to visit museums in other places. And so that's really how we make decisions about whether we're going to get someone in from outside, whether we're going to use a staff member's expertise. An example is that until very recently, we had a staff member on staff, Michael, who some of you I'm sure know, Michael Flanagan. He was with our library for quite some time. And he is really a subject specialist in LGBTQ history in the Bay Area. And he created a presentation that he presented at our library a number of times and has actually brought out to other libraries in the area. Now, Michael retired in July, but we brought him back as a contractor in October to provide that presentation again, because we didn't want to lose access to that expertise just because that person was no longer on staff. A little about our statistics. Our story times are consistently popular. You're looking at an average attendance of 4750 per story time here at Alma Street. An average book group attendance of 17, which is pretty good. And an average of about 1,000 people coming to our events overall every month. I feel like we're running a little long, so I'm not really gonna, I'm not gonna get into library adventure too much. Well, no, well,
One thing that's useful is that, we've had this library-wide scavenger hunt that we've done successfully a few times here. And our next one will be at the Bellhaven Community
Yes.
Campus, which is very exciting because now we'll get to share it with Bellhaven community as well.
what I wanted to say about library adventure is sometimes staff have a really good idea. And even if it is somewhat work intensive and therefore expensive in terms of staff time, sometimes it really pays off. Desiree is our children's librarian, you'll meet her. She had the idea for library adventure, a scavenger hunt where people learn about the library, people of all ages. And it was a hit. It has received attendance of at least 200 all 3 times that we've had it. So the 4th is coming up in January. So sometimes it does pay to invest in ideas that staff have. Oh, and the last statistic that I wanted to really point out is that since the opening of the Bellhaven Community Campus, John has been bringing in wonderful presenters on the weekends. You can see the SF Chamber Orchestra right there. Usually John was describing earlier, assembly style programming. And we've been getting an average of 65 people at each of those events. All right, we're not done yet. No, you know what?
A list and not a full one.
This is a list and not a full one. Here are some of the programs that we offer. We tried to break them down in a way that sort of made sense. I don't even really want to read off of this slide. I'd rather go to your questions and use this as inspiration for questions. Should you have it. But if you don't, we can just go.
Well, first of all, let me interrupt first of all, just to kick it back to the chair so that we can take
Oh, yes,
any public.
sorry.
Yes. Nick, is there any public comment?
I tossed it to myself. At this time, if you'd like to make a comment on this item, the presentation on library programs, please raise that virtual Zoom hand at the bottom of your screen, press *9 if you're dialing in. If you're joining us here in the library, fill out a comment card and bring it on up. Pause for a moment. See if there is any comment. Seeing none, back to the commission.
I have a question. Well, first I want to compliment all 3 of you. This is a wonderful presentation. It's a great job. I'm very interested to hear about all of it. Just one little question about your statistics.
Mhm.
You have book groups, 17. So I know that you have, what, 5?
We have
5 adult, so is that 17 is like
4
per
adults.
group or all of them together?
This
Or
is an average, and I think it's an average per meeting, not an average per month. But I need to get the answer to that for you because I did not pull that statistic. Iris pulled that statistic.
It's
so-
each, it's not. all
each
of it
one, I
together.
mean, I've done some of the fiction ones and there were nowhere near 17. It was just, that's why it made me think, oh, well, maybe this is all of those, all 5.
Some of the other ones, they're
They're more popular.
very well
Yeah.
attended. The
Yeah.
middle school book club, for
That
instance,
bumped up
just
numbers, I will say.
started.
The middle grade book group that
Has a lot.
Desiree started has been doing wonderfully well.
Oh,
And that's only been running for a couple of months, but I think that bumped it up.
yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's great. Brian, did you?
Yeah, I had a quick question. How do you have so many programs, but how does the facilities here match up with your ideas for programs and are you limited at times?
We're definitely limited.
Okay.
This room is great for things like this, but it doesn't get a lot of foot traffic that you can see. And in general, one of the ways that we, you know, as John says, programs are very sort of symbiotic with other library services because the programs bring people in and they learn about the library, but also we get people at the programs by them being at the library and going, that's interesting. I'll come over and watch that.
That's right. You remember earlier, I briefly used the stumble upon statement.
Yes.
This is a hard room.
This
for
is a
people
hard room to stumble upon.
Right now, they're walking by, they can look in the window. But my preferred place for a smaller program is up at the top of the stairs. So we all had to pass the top of the stairs between the elevator and the staircase to get over here. So we move aside all of our nice movable shelves with our new collection. We bring in the chairs and we put signs around to say what's going on. So people like, they stumble upon a great event and they say, you know, I came here to pick up my holds, but wow.
Yes.
So
So one of the ways that we have addressed this is by making our library spaces. I already used the word modular in a different context, but modular. We have made our library spaces easy to disassemble and reassemble in different orders. You're sitting in an example of this right now, but also, as John was saying, we'll move all of the shelving down the middle here in the mysteries. And then suddenly it's a space where a program can take place. And that's one of the ways that we've adjusted to. It's not ideal. That said, prior to 2020, there's a room downstairs. It has a relatively small room capacity. It has no windows and it is accessible via both elevator and stairs, but in the event of an emergency, evacuating would not be easy. And so during the closure, one of the changes that we made is we moved the staff desks to that space and moved the library programming up here and no longer have a dedicated program room for those three reasons that I mentioned. Does that?
Yeah, and I think like where I'm on the ad hoc group, I think
Mhm.
at some point it would be great to talk just on programming and where your limits are.
Right,
Because things have changed, obviously,
absolutely.
from the old days of the quiet library.
oh, yes.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yeah, it's experiential learning is a lot of the learning that takes place. Yes. Yeah.
I was just curious, you mentioned like when talking about the programming, these sort of type of interactions where someone will come up for the seed bank, say, Master Gardener. Or I was just curious, how much of the plan, when you're planning new events, how much of that process is about identifying needs in the community and addressing them? And how much of that is about creating space for those kinds of interactions and user input?
I'm gonna.
I call it a balance between all of that. So we're, the people who are coming to our programs and they're taking the time to come up to us and thank us for the program. They might even come days later and say, Ella's here. And, you know, do you know about that program that happened? They're going to tell us about that. And they're going to say from there, you know what you should do? You should do this. I know a person who's this. So we get a lot of anecdotal stuff from our people. Every once in a while, we do certain kinds of surveys. We're also keeping our eyes on the calendar and the newspapers and the availabilities within the neighborhood.
Yes.
Yeah,
And by John means John. This is a lot, John.
but I'm not in a vacuum.
No, this is true, but you really keep your finger on the pulse of.
Yeah.
Current events of, you know, who is hot and interesting, and you're seeing noise on the internet about a performer or a presenter or a news article that took place. One of the reasons that we have so many interesting programs is because of that work that John puts in on that end of things.
Pardon me, I'm sure recovering from an injury, so I'm not quite sure how I can move my leg properly, but stay in like the, I don't know,
Yeah.
at the table. Oh, thank you, John. Well, first of all, I really appreciate hearing the presentation. I was really bummed that I had to, miss the last, commission meeting because I thought you, John, you were gonna be presenting and I would, miss that, and that was really important to me, but, thanks for everything you shared, and, as Commissioner Schaefer, asked and you answered, that the, things are evolving with, but the, you know, what's, keep things that, people in the community are interested in, what you hear in the internet, versus, maybe something that one of the other libraries in the area is doing, and, or, how much would you say, and this is a tough question for you, put you on the spot, John, but like,
I'll just turn it over to Rose.
no, no, because I'm really interested in your personal,
Thank you.
spin on this, is, how much of a sense do you feel that you have a pulse on the community, or striving to get the pulse on the community in order to evolve your, programming?
I'd call that a constant effort. We always have to be conscientious about that. We're trying to, you know, whether we're picking up the almanac or looking at the in Menlo, or talking to people in general, as I said so much when I was talking earlier. It's something we always have to be thinking about. You can't just say, okay, we've taken your pulse and now we know what your pulse is, right? So it's an ongoing thing for all of us to figure out, okay, what are the trends in reading for the circulation as they're choosing, you know, what they're buying and what they're replacing, to what I'm suggesting as a program.
Great.
Yeah, we always have to be aware.
I appreciate it. And so I have a question for Ellen. I'll couch it in terms that I work for the high school district, so I totally understand the potential revolving door of staff who work with teenagers, I myself included. Could you point to anything in particular of why there was a lot of turnover?
I'm actually the right person to talk about
okay.
that, because Ella wasn't in the job at the time.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, people leave jobs for a lot of reasons. There was turnover, there was, as I mentioned, high turnover during the pandemic. People that one of the teen librarian who was working prior to 2020 went another direction. We have had a librarian who moved on to a higher position somewhere else. We had a librarian who decided she wanted a closer commute. And we had a librarian who was just gonna have a baby. So all these things happen, but it hasn't been. It hasn't been a situation of, this is a, you know.
It's not a cursed position.
I
Yeah,
really like.
What I was implying or meant to convey is, you know, was there anything that was maybe lessons learned is a polite way of saying, you know, there's
Yeah.
there was not enough pay, or there was not enough alliance with the high schools, or I don't know, is there anything that
Well,
was
I
a
mean, I've just
concern?
given you the reasons that these
Right,
people left.
Okay, so then it's fine.
People did want to move, they wanted a closer.
Yeah,
distance
okay,
from
so then
home,
thank
or
you for
more
answering.
money,
Yes, thank
or-
you for already answering the
I
question.
will say one thing too, that I
Yeah.
came in that was, like, sort of what I talked about with programming today, but one of the
Right.
challenges I think of starting at the teen librarian with so much turnover is, at the Menlo Park Library, I'm a city employee, right? So I
Right.
help manage the teen advisory group, but I also work with the city's youth advisory committee.
Right.
And so I think that, part of what I love about my job is how much it involves programming and working directly with teens. And I think that that might not be what everyone imagines when they go into librarianship.
okay.
And so I think that probably one of the reasons why teen librarians can kind of come and go a little bit is that it might be a little bit of a shock when you come in and you think you're going to be doing a lot of collection development, and working on desks and all of a sudden you're spending a lot of your week working with teenagers and keeping up with teenagers and making sure that they're staying on task with different assignments that they've agreed to
Mhm.
to help
sure.
with your city's vision. And so, it's something that I really enjoy doing, and it's
Mhm.
part of why I'm happy to be in this role.
Right.
I'm not glad that the library had so much turnover, but as someone who was in library school and desperately wanted to be the teen librarian, it worked out very well for me.
I will
So-
say that I am glad.
We're
Yeah,
very.
I'm just, great,
I'll let Ray fit the
because the
double.
question was really just meant for lesson learned that you're using to move forward, so thank you for answering that. Other question is, so I guess you kind of answered it just now, that, so the youth advisory committee is the one for the city,
Yes,
and not a separate one for the library? Okay.
That's a great question. And yes, they are separate. So the teen advisory group is only within the library. It's our volunteer group. And it's very relaxed and flexible. Teens come when they have time to volunteer. I run it along with one of my colleagues, David Jimenez. He manages our Spanish collection. It's fantastic with teens as well. And we run that group together. And it's a lot more flexible, and teens get to give input into the library, help pick films, things like that. Our youth advisory committee is a lot more structured.
Right.
And that is a city committee, obviously. And with that, there is mandatory attendance and recurring assignments and a much more rigorous application process. And that's just one of the things about with the city of Menlo Park. We all work together. And so it's such a pleasure to work with Recreation, to work with Deshaun Williams on that as well, to help manage that.
So you work with both groups?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess my last question is there a role for Tide Academy in your work, since they are a district high school in Menlo Park? And I tend to see that they're not well represented in some larger organizations, but do you have someone from Tide Academy that you're working with?
So we do outreach with Tide Academy, and
Yeah.
we do see participation in our Menlo Park Youth Poetry Voices this past spring.
Right,
We
okay.
had a number of participants who were from Tide Academy, so we are getting engagement in that way. There's not anyone currently in our teen advisory group or in youth advisory committee who's in Tide Academy.
There has been in the past, though.
Right,
We
okay.
had
We just
folks from
interest
Tide. Mhm.
applicants this year, but it is a part of our outreach. We reach out to all the high schools. It happens that MA is very close and a lot of
Right.
kids walk here after school, so we do get most consistent engagement with them, but we do have a couple other high schools represented.
Like Woodside and, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone, I know it can be a challenge with high school students, having one myself and their commitments and responsibility, and don't get me started. But it's nice to hear that there is this informal and formal engagement, and that not that you have to like hold anyone to anything, but that you are reaching out to Tide and Woodside and trying to get everyone involved. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
Any other, yeah,
I just want to piggyback on the question about the teen advisory group, which it sounds like you get a lot out of having that group and able to interact with them. And I'm curious, does the library have other sort of demographic groups that they consult with that are on a volunteer basis, or is it just through the
I think
teams?
old people. can-
you're right here.
Hello.
In terms of volunteer groups, our teen advisory group is the only volunteer group we have at the library, which a large part of that is staffing. We don't have the staff to manage more than that. Takes up a lot of my job, which I enjoy, but we just don't have the staff. for more volunteer
We
groups.
try to funnel people who are interested in volunteering their services toward the Friends of the Library and toward the Library Foundation, because that is a place where that is already established.
Mhm.
In future, I would love to be able to coordinate more volunteers, but at this time.
Yeah, we had pre-pandemic, we had a fairly robust volunteer program of all ages, include from the children's room up through adult volunteers, teen and adult volunteers, as well as sort of project-based volunteers. Mostly high school kids who had some sort of public service element requirement at their schools. And we had a program developed where they could come in and volunteer at the library. But it is intensive staff-wise to manage those sorts of
Someone
things.
who is a volunteer coordinator. It
Right.
can't really be a piggyback job.
Mhm.
That said, Ella and I have been talking about an internship program. We've been discussing an internship program, so that is still in its nascent stages, and we don't want to give too much away, but that's something that we've certainly been talking about, possibly doing. Also, your question being about getting feedback, and that's, John was saying, occasionally we will have surveys. We do try, sometimes we'll do a targeted survey in terms of when we were opening the HCC, we did an evaluation of our storytime hours. And there were a lot of words on that storytime slide, but you'll notice that we have elected to have our story times at the HCC at different times. And that was due to the feedback that we got on the storytime survey that we were doing, that we had at all of our story times, and we're sort of going, and please, if you were enjoying our story times, go over and fill out a story time survey. That information will help us so much as we program our future.
I have a question piggybacking on your piggybacking with my piggybacking. John, so like, let's say there's a Filipino cultural event. It's just as a random choice here. Do you find that you have the opportunity to work with community volunteers in that cultural group, like Indigenous people or Filipino American, or if when you do a like Persian, like a harvest festival, do you find someone like in the community who says, oh, wow, I'm excited you have this, and then get them to volunteer for the future event kind of thing?
So for every program we have, it's a different situation. So,
Mhm.
like you saw the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra, for instance,
Right,
they do all their things by volunteer. So we do not pay them to come out to the community. They're doing community outreach.
Right.
You're talking about different cultural things. We have a Persian storyteller who has brought us, or story timer who has brought us a Nowruz story time,
Mhm.
and that was by volunteer. So
Mhm.
we've got a monthly program. It's our global language story time, and we feature a different language every month to demonstrate that there are many different languages around the world that which we speak here in Menlo Park. Predominantly, it's not the only language in the world. So
Mhm.
people get to see a different language, and they get to see their home language in some cases. It's what we call windows and mirrors. They get to see themselves, they get to see the broader community. And many of those story timers are volunteer. They're saying, I would like to bring you
Mhm.
a Portuguese story time,
Right.
and I'll share my traditions. One of our best story time providers is a Japanese group. It's the Poponto Cultural Association, and they provide around Santa Clara and San Mateo counties completely free, and they're sharing culture, and they're bringing in people from their community to share their culture and to take in what they're doing here at the library.
Mhm.
So those are just a couple of instances. In some cases, we need to go out and seek things. And, we can't just expect everybody to come into us for free, but some people are more than ready to do so. And we
Right.
take advantage of a mix of things.
So one last question, and self-serving, because I volunteer, I do communications for a local volunteer orchestra. Did San Francisco come to you, or did you reach out to them, or?
I was telling
How
Rose
did that-
recently, I need to make a note of how I discover each different person, because by the time, all the churning that it gets to get, here on the ground, I tend to forget that. They approached me in this case. Look at that, I remember.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I mean, that was, I mean, my bigger question is, generally, it's, sometimes you approach them, or they approach you, or a
Right.
community member thinks of an idea and talks to you about it.
Yeah,
and
every
so
event. has its
everything's
own
different.
story.
That's great to hear, and don't quote me as I go back to the conductor of my orchestra and see if they'd be willing to do something.
It's wonderful outreach they're doing.
I know.
And it benefits us and our community for sure.
Yeah. You'll hear from me.
Okay.
Anyone else? We've taken more than our share a lot of time.
But we
we're
very
happy
much
to-
appreciate it. Thank you so much, all
Thank
three of you. Really appreciate it.
No, I will not see you in January. You will see some of my colleagues in January because due to the joys of the way that the Monday holiday in January works, I will be leading a book group. And so that Nora can be here. So I will not see you in January, but you will see us. We
Great.
talk about data and statistics.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I think now we'll be moving to our regular business. Under regular business, the Library Commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Library Commission approval. We'll start off by considering the item D1, which is approving the minutes from the October 21, 2024 meeting. Nick, do we have any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, if you would like to make a public comment on item D1, approve the meeting minutes from the October 21st, 2024 meeting of the Library Commission, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, *9 if you're dialing in, fill out a comment card, and please bring it forward if you are here in person. Pausing a moment, we have a couple of attendees, but I see no hands raised. Back to you,
All right.
Chair.
Would anybody have any comment on the minutes from the October 21 meeting? Would a commissioner like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Wise. Would anybody like to second the motion?
Let's go. Second.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Westcott. Nick, would you take a roll call vote on the motions?
The motion on the floor is to approve the meeting minutes from the October 21st, 2024 meeting. Commissioner Herrick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chair Orton, how do you vote?
Yes,
Commissioner Pollock, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Wise, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Next, we'll move to item D2. Recommend updates to the library collection development policy. Staff is going to provide some background information and then we'll take public comment.
Thank you, Chair. I will quickly pull up the red line draft here. From time to time, we bring the commission changes to policies, most recently with our collection development policy, which I think the commission had seen late last year for the latest update. I'll scroll down to the bottom here. Will tell me.
2022. but it was
2022.
not long ago.
It seemed like last year. Recently, the state has asked that, whoops, I don't mean to go down whole pages. I'm going to scroll a little bit here. Has asked that through an Assembly Bill Act called the California Freedom to Read Act, AB 1825, that the following 4 statements be added to library collection development policies. You can see them there. It doesn't really materially change anything that was in our collection development policy. But since it's a requirement of that bill, we put them in there. I think they were substantively covered in other ways in our collection development policy. But you could see why these statements would be important for collection development policies that might not already contain similar language. So those are the only real changes other than some house cleaning changes to the policy and the revision date on the document. Sorry, I'm scrolling really fast, but there is you're right, Sean. 2022 was the last time the commission recommended the policy update, and then you have this administrative update here.
All right.
That I will stop. That is my background information.
All right, and so now I think we need to ask for public comment.
So if anyone would like to make a public comment on item D2, recommend updates to the library collection development policy, please use that raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen, *9 if you're dialing in. Please fill out a comment card and bring it forward if you are here in person. Pausing dramatically, but seeing no comment. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Any commissioners have anything to say? In that case, would a commissioner like to make a motion to recommend the updates to the collection development policy?
I'll make the motion to recommend the policy.
Right, and a second from anyone?
I'll second it.
All right,
So we have a motion made by Commissioner Schaefer, seconded by Commissioner Pollock to recommend the updates to the policy. I'm going to do the roll call vote. Commissioner Herrick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollock, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wise, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Orton, how do you vote?
yes,
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
all right. The next item is item D3 to approve the 2025 Library Commission meeting calendar. Staff will introduce the item and then we'll take public comment after.
So again, a quick introduction. Every year, we try to get the commission meeting calendar out in front of you as early as possible so that you have a chance to look at it and set your calendars accordingly. Just pointing out that the two upcoming meetings, the two first meetings of the new year in January and February, both move back a week because of holidays falling on those third Mondays. Other things to note would be a joint meeting that we have scheduled in May with the Parks and Rec Commission, and then another joint meeting in December. You guys get to host this on your regular day on the 15th of December. Other than that, November doesn't look like it's going to fall too close to Thanksgiving, so that looks pretty good. We have a meeting on my birthday in September.
Oh,
That's 2 in a row this year. There you go.
so should we take public comment before we have any
Sure,
discussion?
Sure. I'm talking a lot tonight. At this time, if you'd like to make a comment on item D3, approving the 2025 Library Commission meeting calendar, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Press *9 if you're dialing in, or fill out a comment card if you are here in person. Seeing no comment, back to you, Chair.
Okay, so open for discussion. Anybody have any comment or questions on the calendar? My only question is whether we will be having some of these meetings at the Belhaven Center and when and how that gets decided, whether we have them here or over at the other branch.
I think we certainly love to have at least one meeting a year at Belhaven, but you guys can decide that pretty much. I think it's nice to have sort of a regular location as well as a regular time so people get a feel for when it's
Right.
happening. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll have the joint meetings at the branch just because that makes it's special already because we might
Right.
be changing the date, and so then we can call out the change in location. But it's really
That's a good
up
idea.
to you
And
guys
more people.
how you want
Yeah.
to do it.
I like that
It-
idea.
Sometimes it's also topic related. If you remember when we had a lot of
Right.
meetings that were subject, sort of about subjects that impacted the Belhaven community, we had the meetings there. So we might have a meeting there as well as there's something of import to the Belhaven community.
Yeah, on that note, I'll just add, staff is recommending that the May meeting be a joint meeting with the PRC. In part because that will be around 1 year after the BHCC. So I think we were kind of thinking if that one would take place then.
That's a great idea.
And then the December one, it seems, is also joint.
Another good
Yeah,
opportunity.
so that would be great, I think.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
I have a thought on this, Chairwoman. So I agree and understand the idea of having a regular place to always come to and then having special events should be at Belhaven. But I also feel like to some extent, oh, it's nice to, Bellhaven is just as much part of our library community fabric as this office is. And the more we have exposure to that facility as a commission, the better off we are. So instead of just, maybe if I can offer just like one more, like a random commission meeting be held also in Bellhaven, then might not be a bad idea.
I think further to that, it might be wise. I don't know how new commissioners are recruited, but like, I don't know when we last had one on library commissioner from District 1. And
Mhm.
I know that a lot of them are District 3 because it's close to this library, so this is sort of beyond what this conversation is going in, but I think
Yeah.
we want to just note that there's way to get a commissioner from District 1 or District, I don't know if anyone's from District 2 here, but that would be awesome.
Well, I don't know what will happen with filling Jennifer's seat. Have you gotten any feedback from the city clerk on
I
that?
haven't heard directly from the city clerk, but normal appointments are made in April, so they
Right.
may not want to wait that long to appoint someone. I don't know offhand. I don't remember offhand, Vice Chair, when your term ends.
Ooh,
It's the
so-
same as,
yeah, I was
it's,
like,
Yeah.
it's
what was it,
uh,
4 years? So then
2027, I think.
So
4
there-
years from last year, so that would be, didn't we start
no,
last year?
'cause we've been on a year and a half, right? Going on 2 years this
Let's take a look.
May.
It's on the website.
There's also
Oh, yes.
a related issue is that that staff looks at sometimes is, oh, if the commission has a quorum, let's just like not do a special selection or effort to fill that seat. Let's wait till April. But in cases where, oh, we're just not gonna get a
Oh, yeah,
quorum
April.
and may be problematic, then they're faster to get the seat filled.
It really just depends, and the library and community services staff don't get to pick. We can
Mhm.
lobby.
Right.
I think we would lobby for having that seat appointed, and there were
Mhm.
folks who put their names forward for the latest round of appointments who did not necessarily get
Oh.
appointed, and I think the
Okay.
city clerk starts with that group of people to see if they're still interested, because
Oh,
they've already
okay.
expressed interest
Mhm. Yeah.
in public service by participating in a commission, so they'll probably start with that.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
said, come to the swearing in on December 10th, and you can chat up the
Lobby
clerk
them.
and ask her to reappoint someone to the library.
Okay. Will do.
So I'm not sure what, I think it makes a lot of sense to do May and December, because May is the first one after the new appointments are made in April, and December's the holiday thing. Maybe we watch out for opportunities where it makes sense because of subject matter or whatever to have
Mhm.
another one in Bellhaven, but for now, leave the calendar. So we all know, except for those 2 times it's here, but we can always add.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Makes sense to me, and I think you guys can talk to us. I think the
Mhm.
idea of this meeting calendar is just to get something on the books for
calendar.
everybody, so you have some certainty when you go about planning your lives.
Yeah.
And it helps us.
Yeah.
It helps us too.
Mhm.
So would anybody like to make a motion to approve the 2025 Library Commission meeting calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve it with the sites noted.
Thank you, Commissioner Westcott. Do I have a second?
I'll second. All
right,
All right, the motion before the commission is to approve the 2025 Library Commission meeting calendar with the additional stipulation that we try to hold one additional meeting in Bellhaven, made by Commissioner Westcott and seconded by Commissioner Pollock. Roll call, Commissioner Herrick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollock, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wise, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Orton, how do you vote?
Yes,
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
thank you. Last in regular business, we have item D4, a report out from the ad hoc subcommittee consisting of Commissioners Crockett, Herrick, and Westcott. I think this is you.
It's not
they're-
me.
It's
either.
So
It's
I
either
know
not-
okay, so the subcommittee has a short presentation that goes along with their report out. So after
will be closing and.
you and a little of me make the presentation, I'm not sure what order you want to
Why
do
don't we-
things.
Close in 10 minutes.
So there's basically three things we'd like to update on. One is the report on the previous work done on a library back in the late, like 2019. Two, Michael should talk about some of the work we're doing on actually surveying libraries, physical libraries in the area. And then I'll talk about the schedule and see, we put the schedule to the pack. So
Okay.
Carol, why don't you summarize that?
So, I don't know that, it's a multi-page document that's, attachment A, to your agenda packet after the, memo from staff. So it's agenda item D4. I'm not gonna read it all, but just a couple prefatory comments is that I have to give credit to, Commissioner, Crockett, who was not able to be here tonight, but I know she's listening in by Zoom from back east. Kim and I both read all the documents that Nick was very thorough and gave us a very helpful list of all the public documents resulting from really years of research and analysis of the pros and cons and status of the library facilities in Menlo Park. So Kim and I both read through all those materials, and Kim took on the lion's share of the work of writing up a memo that's attached here that goes through that timeline. And it's not a advocacy memo. It's a factual timeline of all the work that went on over years. So starting in 2017, a needs study, and there was funding from the Library Foundation to help with that, and also contribution from the city. There was a history of philanthropic offers made by one person, and then that fell through. And in any event, we all know that what resulted was tabling of consideration of what to do about this facility in favor of understandably and rightfully working on the Bellhaven project, which is now complete. So this goes through that timeline and all the work that was done and all the analysis and the different things that were considered. One thing that isn't quoted in here that I wanted to highlight is from a staff report that was done on January 15th, 2019. It's linked to on page 4 of this timeline. But I just want to read out this one sentence in the background section of the staff report from January 15, 2019. It says multiple studies conducted by the city in 2015, 2017, and 2018 concluded that the current Bellhaven and Main Library facilities are outdated and insufficient to meet community needs now and into the future, and should be replaced with new facilities. So everything's on the table. I'm not saying that is what should happen this time, but I think just the context that we all should review this, so we're all on the same page of all the work that was done over years and the realities of this library. So that, I don't know if there's more that you want to hear, but I wish Kim could chime in, because as I say, she really did the lion's share, and I just proofread and said, good job.
And let me just add too, that my impression is, as you said, that the study had progressed quite far in recommending a new library, and really it was just interrupted during COVID. And the building, which we all
Right.
agree was a good thing to build Bellhaven. But, you know, this is more of a continuation of that work, is how I look at what the ad hoc committee is doing.
Right. And that was kind of where Kim and I both came out, is that, oh, you know, it was an eye-opening thing for us to look at and say, oh, it wasn't ever decided, no, it's not needed. It was more just like, oh, we're gonna put this on the back burner for a while because we need to do this other thing first, and then the pandemic, and then the funding and whatever. So we're picking it back up, and again, kudos to the three of you for the work that you've been doing in between our meetings. And I think this would be a good time for you guys to talk about the other parts of what
Yeah, I
you've
was,
been doing.
Michael,
Michael?
if you want to talk about the work you're doing on the.
Yeah,
maybe.
Can I make a question comment and just sort of
Sure.
thank you and Kim for doing this, because it was very efficient for me to look today and all these links. I confess, Nick, I didn't look at them in depth a month ago, but this is so wonderful. And I think the way that we're all working together, this is good. I wanted to note just that I don't know where the housing element process came in, but I think this community change is not only did the pandemic happen, so I think we take forward the idea that like there wasn't either enough space, or, you know, there were already a lot of studies showing documenting need, but a lot's changing about Menlo Park now. And I think with, you know, however much new housing is coming in over there, over here, I want to raise the idea of 80 Willow, but if that really does go forward, that is a huge impact on the number of people who would use community services. I mean, who had walking
Good
distance
point.
of this
Such a great
particular
point.
site.
Yeah.
We can't know the future, but that's sort of what our exercise is about, the library of the future,
Yeah.
whatever that will be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So- And to Brian's point, we've scheduled a visit, with probably the only library we might visit on the other side of the bay, Hayward, although we've talked about going all the way up into the Walnut Creek area eventually, if people wanted to. Right now, I think we have on our list of libraries that we're planning to reach out to in some way in the new year, Atherton, Redwood City, Palo Alto, Los Gatos, I think, and maybe Los Altos, maybe both. So lots of peninsula. I think Burlingame has been, keeps being brought up as sort of a similar sized community. We reached out to Hayward, thanks to Sean having a connection there and put us in touch with the director, who seems very excited to just meet with us and give us a tour, because Kim identified it, I think, in our most recent meeting as a place that had a recent construction, which I think Sean was involved with. And so I think just sort of as a way to test out some of our questions, go to community that isn't thought of necessarily as peer of Menlo Park, but nonetheless in the Bay Area, and I think in some ways could be peers with people within our community in certain ways. And so we've decided to go there to test our questions. We were going to just bring them all to this meeting and say, have at it, people. We thought, no, maybe we should be the guinea pigs first, go do a library visit, try to come up with a template of questions that then in our December meeting, if people would like to sign on the dotted line, so start thinking about that list of libraries I just went through. If there is a library or another library that we haven't mentioned yet, that you know you would like to visit for whatever reason. What we're trying to do is create a structured data receiving tool so that we don't drive ourselves crazy, and give you basic questions and things to research, and a way to go about doing this is you each would contact your own library and go either on your own or with a pair. I don't know how that works in the Brown Act. We agreed that people could sign up to do a library visit individually, certainly. So ideally by the December meeting, right, Brian, we will come back with our, initial fun. We are the guinea pigs. It's the first pancake. We will bring it back for everyone to see, and then we can sort of finalize our questions and approach so people can really get going in the new year. Is that fair? In terms of the-
Yeah. Yes, and I'll just add, it's included in the package we put together, which we shared with the group last time, an overall schedule and responsibilities. The goal here is to correspond with what the library staff is presenting. Their report comes out in June, July. We'll be pulling all this information together and writing the whole report with their help. With the ultimate goal of presenting to the council in the August, September timeframe.
Mhm.
So, and I might add, I think we're even more excited about the opportunities and the way libraries are changing. I know I'm learning a lot, but, who knew video games? And why, that was new to me tonight, so.
Yeah,
So anyway, I
Okay.
think, we'll make good progress, and as Michael said, I think in December. We do have people signed up for different things, but December we'll get the library survey groups and hopefully we'll get participation.
And I should mention, we're ideally gonna try to, people will do library visits, get them done in. Schedule them for January or early February, because the idea is that some of these ideas that might come back from other communities. Could sort of
The
inform,
library will be closed in 10 minutes. If you're working on a laptop, please start saving your work and shutting down. Restrooms are now locked.
it could inform how we then roll into our focus groups, right? We talked about running some focus groups within our Menlo Park community. And that could help structure them, right? If we get ideas from outside, and sort of bounce them off.
so I think I'm required to have Nick ask for public comment before giving any comments and
Sure,
questions.
none of you have tired of hearing me do my little public comment spiel. At this moment, if you'd like to make a comment on item D4, the ad hoc subcommittee update, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Press *9 if you're dialing in, or grab a comment card if you are here in person. Pausing once more for dramatic effect, but I see no comments, and back to the commission.
I definitely have some comments and questions, but I want to leave it open to the other commissioners first, and then I'll follow in depending on if anybody else has anything.
As usual. One initial thought, regarding, future population, that's gonna be a challenge of, what is, housing development look like, and how quickly will, additional population, be in Menlo Park, and, there's just related challenges around infrastructure, et cetera. One thought of how to move forward with this project is to look at which services can be done to virtualize, like it to be in other facilities, or I don't know, cooperate with the elementary school district or the high school and say, hey, can we use your auditorium for this big event? Just finding ways to cooperate with different groups in the community and get space on more of an ad hoc basis than, oh, okay, if a population is going to grow by X% and there's going to be, so many people in the year 2029, then the library has to be this big. If services are virtualized or, more community based, then that's less of a concern.
Yeah, and in fact, I was gonna say, that's probably a good question. When we go to
That's the other
libraries and say, how do you collaborate with other spaces and other public facilities? Yeah.
And so my question then is, and I'm thinking this can avoid any Brown Act challenges. Nick, you can confirm, is if I was given a survey and say, Dave, this is your marching order. I need you to sign up for a library of your choice, or if you can go to one of these libraries, here's our questionnaire. Can you go and get it and then give the information back to you? Couldn't that, since I'm not really collaborating with the subcommittee, I'm just
Right.
taking an action of interviewing, writing out some information and then handing it back to the committee. That would work, wouldn't it?
I think so, but
Mhm,
I would probably run it past the clerk just to make sure, but that
Mhm.
seems fine to me. It's.
I think our idea in the last meeting was that it comes back we have this on the agenda item every month. So if
Right.
you'd make a visit in December, you'd be ready to bring it back as a report, brief report to hand publicly. I mean, I think that's the safest way to do it.
Yeah, and because I'm assuming it's okay, and I'll check with the clerk, but it's like, we're not really communicating. You're just like, here's your marching order. You just take the response and hand it back to us.
Right.
And it's not really like, oh, what's our strategy supposed to be with Fremont or, versus these guys or whatever. It's just, I'm like a lackey,
Right,
Well-
and that's the
doing that.
intent,
Yeah.
we have, let's call it a template, it's not a strict hardcore survey
Right.
where,
Mhm.
but it gives you a template. Some questions, but some open-ended, have
Right.
an interview with the librarian and exactly the idea, and that's
Yeah.
what we're gonna test at Hayward
right,
with 3 of us, so that's not gonna violate any Brown Act,
Right.
and then it'll be brought back to the full commission in December, and then, yes, and then we would hope to sign up and people could multiply. Standing library.
I will check to make
Okay.
sure.
thank
Well,
you.
I just want to raise the possibility that there's in addition to that method of doing it, that you could consider having more people involved. For example,
Mhm.
the foundation is
Okay.
very interested in this, and they've gone through this whole process once before and have a lot of institutional knowledge within that organization. One of their representatives is sitting here, Monica Corman. And at the last meeting a couple days ago, these comments kind of overlap with my report on that liaison. But there's great interest in helping visit libraries and ask questions and whatever. And to me, I was hoping that I could also go
Sure.
to the December 11th one. But and I think there's a way to notice it. You guys have didn't you do this before last time around?
If there's an event or something that is like a meeting, could be a meeting of
It's just a question
a
of notice.
quorum.
It
Yeah,
just has to be
you just-
noticed.
You just have
And
to
you
notice
say, like,
that
I'm
there
gonna show up.
could
then
be a quorum of
Okay,
the library commission at a library visit at the Hayward Library, basically.
I mean, the main thing, my understanding of the Brown Act is you want to prevent people making decisions and having conferences outside of, but if you publicly notice that this group of people is going to go visit a library, I think anybody on the commission or on the foundation, I mean, I don't want it to be cumbersome and be a
Right,
big
we-
bus
we don't
or
want-
anything.
But do you need
And
a
I know-
quorum for that meeting? Do I need to just show up and like hang out in the shelves?
Well,
so
I
that
think
there's
it's a
quorum?
notice, I think the notice, as I've seen them, is there's a potential for a quorum of commissioners or council members. Like there was, say, at the grand opening celebration for the new campus.
Right.
The notice for the city council said it's a public notice that there is a possibility of a quorum of city council members attending this event.
Right,
So there could be a possibility of a quorum of commission members attending this library visit.
right.
But
And
you don't need an actual quorum.
you don't need a quorum.
No,
You just
you're
need a
just letting the
notice.
public know that you're
Exactly.
all going to this event where the focus is not us making a decision about anything or discussing business. It's about learning
Right.
what is happening at these other libraries and I just think there's something really different about getting a report back versus going yourself. And I think it's
oh, yeah,
Sure.
personally, I think it's better to have at least 2 people go to something, not have a bunch of single.
No,
I
and
did-
that's the idea.
yeah,
to have a group.
yeah.
In
Yeah,
this
to
case,
have
it's
small
3,
groups.
but at least
Yeah.
2, maybe.
Yeah.
So if we can do that somehow, that's fine. I mean, we were just worried about the Brown Act.
Right, right.
Overriding.
Yeah, so it's worth worrying about, but I don't
So
think
we'll-
it should
we'll-
keep us from,
Mhm.
So we'll
Yeah.
meet in the parking lot. You can drive over with it.
And as regarding the foundation, they don't count for the quorum. So
Right.
Right.
It's not that they don't
So,
count, it's
do
just they
we
don't,
also-
for purposes of the Brown Act, they're
But
Mhm.
what I was
Could you
hoping, I
reach
mean,
out to the foundation and see.
what I would like to, that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to discuss
Yeah.
tonight is to say, this is the initial list of libraries that we're thinking about visiting. Hayward has a date and a time. Let me know if you want to go. And they, someone, people on the library
Right.
commission can drive with me. And as long, I mean, if it's, I don't think the library foundation is not that big. I can't imagine that many people will be able to go on December 11th, and then we can roll from there but I think that having one or two people who've been through this drill before and have visited some of the same libraries,
Right.
it would be super helpful.
No
No,
reason to
I agree.
reinvent the
Yeah,
wheel.
there's,
Yeah.
yeah. It,
I think that holds also for, I'm thinking about the focus groups,
Yeah.
the more Kim, Brian and I have met, the more constituencies we've actually thought of.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And so I think the more volunteers we can get to sort of lead input and lead the research who have more experience than us in the community would be awesome.
right, but,
So-
but focus groups have to be run a certain
Yeah,
way.
right.
They're a little more structured.
yeah, right now I'm
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
going in the order in which you've
Exactly.
made your list, so I'm looking at visiting libraries and your list of questions. I think that will be very interesting to get that whittled down before more, before more are done, so that.
Exactly.
Well, at
Um,
least we have a base of information, hopefully we'll collect.
I have a question. Who is Jessica on your lead responsible under Menlo Park Historical
Oh,
Society?
that was me.
Yeah.
Somebody
Oh.
put me down as Jessica. That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's-
I
right.
did reach out to them, but I have not yet heard back. So if I do hear back, I don't know who should I
Okay.
forward it to? I don't know, I can forward it to.
Forward it to us.
Okay.
Or to Carol. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and I know Kim is in touch with the Friends of the Library, but
Yes.
I don't know
Yeah.
whether the Friends, whether they were involved to any extent in the last number of years of analysis, or if, I know they have a very specific
Mission.
mission and tasks and what they fund and all that, but I would think they would need to be at least in a focus group.
My recollection is
Yeah.
that was their role. They were heavy participants in the different focus groups through the
Mhm.
space needs study
Yeah,
and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So they weren't going out and doing that outreach, but they were definitely part of the focus groups as we did that work.
If it's a, well, having run focus groups, the intent of the focus groups is to work with the participants, not, so you have to have training and you don't
Yeah.
have a big volunteer group.
No, I was thinking that they would be the participants who would be providing
There would
feedback.
be a
that they
focus
would-
group
Yeah, for
that. Yeah,
them to
that'd be-
give their
that'd be
feedback.
fine.
Yeah.
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 So they would be added to the focus groups. But in the meantime, maybe for December, what we should do is, if you could reach out to the friends and say, we're gonna do this, who would like to participate?
To the foundation.
Foundation, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then in December, we take a little more structured view of saying, okay, who's gonna volunteer for which library and what, kind of let them reach out, set a date and let everyone know, I guess, through Nick, that this is the schedule. So people could say, I'd like to go, to Burlingame Library with Carol, for instance.
So we'll work on that in December.
Right.
After we've
Once
done
we-
this.
We'll maybe have a whole little session on, the final template. Here's a list of libraries, who'd like to volunteer.
Because I assume that for the date that you picked, it was based on when a librarian there was available to meet with you and you guys were available. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so we basically laid it. So I think that's the most important thing. If we're gonna do this pretty efficiently, that people who in the December meeting sign up for a place, before the holidays, try to make that contact with somebody in the community to start looking at dates in January. So that, I think if one person probably has to take responsibility for a specific library
Mhm.
and then can have a pair with 2 or 3 people, but we'd have one person ideally committed in December to say, yeah, I'm gonna.
Mhm.
I was the lead on the communication with Hayward. I wrote to Sean, and the director, and then we established the date. Wasn't too much work. She could get on it in the
Got it.
week or two.
Okay.
So we'll do that. We'll work
Okay.
on that for December.
And that was the basis for my question to Nick about, Brown Act avoidance, so we can circumvent it the way that Chair Orton is spelled out. I'm just looking at, or just thinking out loud about scaling and like with force multiplying, like that is, sometimes, now that I think about it, I have a friend who works at the, San Francisco library, and I'm gonna see if I can like sit down and talk with them. In that scenario, it might not be, like, oh, sure, Dave, I'm happy to meet with you and like, 10 people who are, part of a larger group. He might say, oh, I'll sit down and formally talk with you, or I'll talk with maybe just like 2 people and we kind of spitball how that would work. But I have a feeling that there's a lot out there that we can maybe get at.
Right.
If we, instead of, but not if we, put everyone on blast and say, okay, we're gonna
Right.
interview, you're gonna have an audience of 20 people
Yeah,
listening
no, I
to your.
agree. I think
thoughts.
this, if it gets more than 4 or 5, that's kind of big.
Yeah,
Because then it becomes an event, not just an interview.
and not a private, like the personal, thoughts and, can off record.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where we were with our meeting 2 weeks ago with the forum, that like we wanted it to be structured, but if a commissioner just go, like, I think Kim already, she just happened to have a connection with the La Jolla, and I don't know if she was there or whatever, and she found out a lot of the comparisons didn't apply, but it wasn't a bad conversation to have. She has some notes, and there's no reason not to gather that information in the process.
Mhm.
Well, how about, for the Hayward one, rather than, I would go, so that'd be 4 people.
That'd be fun.
And then I'll be the representative from the foundation for that particular one while we're honing things down and getting our procedure in place. And then I'll report to the foundation, the next foundation meeting, well, there's a working meeting on December 12th, and there's another one on the 19th. So they'll be meeting a couple times right around then. And I can
Right.
update them, and I have a feeling there will be at least a few people who may wish to assist in the new year.
And in fact, if you could ask them, because chances are they have connections at some libraries.
Mhm.
That they might be able to bring to the.
Yeah.
Collection or whatever you're calling it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I will do that. So I don't, is there anything that we need to vote on? I think you've given your report,
It's just a
and
report.
you're gonna report again next month, and in the meantime, we'll have this thing. And Nick, is there anything we need to do to take care of you putting a notice that there might be a quorum at the Hayward Library on December
I'll just,
11th?
I'll just post it and I'll work with the clerk offline. You
Okay.
guys don't need to worry
Okay.
about
The 3x5 card on the bulletin board.
it. Yeah. Well, we just notice it the way we do the other notices. So it shows up on the
We would have
website.
to ask the folks at Hayward to put the notice up, but I'm sure they will.
Yeah. It's okay. We can give you a copy. to
Okay,
print it
thank
with
you. I appreciate it. I just, FOMO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
great we have this much enthusiasm for this, so
Absolutely.
we'll see. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
but as Michael said, the key is we keep this, we get this done in January, February, March.
Yeah.
Place and
yeah,
really go out there.
yeah. I think that's totally possible. All right, we're on to E, informational items. These are items that are transmitted to the Library Commission in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. So the first one is E1, their Library and Community Services Department update, which is their staff report, and I'll let
I'll do
One
this
of you?
one. So, we decided that it might be helpful to put this report on slides since we do seem to like walk through it every month. So just real quickly, it includes statistics. I think it's in attachment A, some highlights are that the Bellhaven Library continues to show really strong performance compared to last year in the old location. Program attendance almost tripled from October this year compared to last year, October. The number of patron questions, that's people asking the librarians for help with various questions, that more than doubled compared to last year, from 244 questions in October of last year to 521 questions in October of this year. So, and that kind of tracks with what we had anticipated. New libraries opening, typically usage goes 2 or 3 times, at least in the first couple of years, it increases by that degree, and that's the case here. I just also want to notice that our senior center lunches have been just really going well. Also almost doubling year over year. There's complete statistics in attachment A. There's many of them, but those are some of the highlights.
Great.
And let's see, we heard a little bit about the seed lending libraries earlier. I think the one thing I didn't hear in the earlier presentation was just tying that into the library of things concept. So we're going to be surfacing some more of those things that are not books, they're not media, but they're objects that people can borrow. We have a number of them. The seed library is one of them. Just want to give a shout out to the Menlo Park Library Foundation, who were one of the original seed funders of the seed library. I've been saving that joke all day, just for you. All right, next slide. You know, a couple slides here on the makerspace, just to give all the detail. We've piloted drop-in hours at the makerspace, so it's just making the space available whenever it's not scheduled for programs. I think we've already talked about what it can do. It's a dynamic multi-use space for all kinds of creative activity. We currently are programming it quite a bit with activities for youth and seniors. However, there are open times when it's not programmed, so folks can just walk right in. But people also can rent that space, and it's very nice. I don't know if we've gotten any rentals on it yet, but it is available for that. The drop-in hours are really just casual. They're not supervised. During the pilot period, you know, the equipment's not out and available yet. We really kind of feel that that should be supervised. But for now, people can bring their own paints. They can bring their own knitting supplies. They can bring their own computer. They can just bring a book, just making the space available. And it is set up for people to do some of those creative things. We are looking to get some feedback based on that casual use. So people are in there and then they might come out and say, gosh, I really wish we could do XYZ in there. And that will help inform more structured open lab hours, which we're going to start next year, which will have more curated, like it's sewing time or it's other kind of project time, or even if it's open lab time and there's someone who can kind of assist in particular with using some of the in-house equipment. So that's up and running right now. We're excited about that. We did have a job fair at Bellhaven Community Campus earlier this month, a huge hit. Job Train organized it, 250 attendees or 26 local organizations. People were able to talk to local recruiters. They were able to get free LinkedIn Premium accounts. They were able to get headshots done. You can see the list of organizations that participated. We really feel like this is a perfect example of using that facility the way it was intended, you know, to just do something that people had been asking about for a while to have access to. Couple things coming up. Our Shop Local at the Season event is December 6th. That's a week from Friday, I believe. It's always the first Friday in December. Really encourage folks to come on out and have fun at that event and shop at local businesses while you're there. And then we also are doing our Photos with Santa event again this year. We're actually going to move it to the Bellhaven Community Campus. That's $5 a person. It's bring your own camera. I hear the breakfast is going to be really good this year because it's going to be made in-house by our team over there at Bellhaven Community Campus.
That food is really good over
Yeah,
there.
so pro tip there. This would be a good year to check out the breakfast. And that's
Do you
about it.
figure the breakfast charge, is that, if you don't, even if you don't want a picture, can you like pay for the breakfast?
Yes, however, there are time slots for the pictures, so and it sells out,
Right.
so
Oh, okay.
to kind of
Take a vanity
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
take a
Go
picture.
ahead, take a goofy one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Great. Do we need to get some public comment on
It's-
this before I do the next?
Sure thing. If you'd like to make a public comment on item E1, the Library and Community Services Department updates, please use that raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, *9 if you're dialing in, comment card here in the library. Seeing none.
All right, so now we're on to
Oh, I just had one comment, Sean, about Makerspace. My daughter is off at college. And I said, what, what'd you do this weekend besides studying? And she said, oh, I just went to the community makerspace and I knitted or watercolored or did whatever, things that she's just I'm not used to seeing come out of her or hearing come out of her mouth about experiencing different activities. So I'm new to this whole makerspace, but I think it's a great idea and I'm excited to see this flourish.
Great.
Great. Anybody else have a comment before I go on to the next item? All right, then we're on to E2, Library Commission tentative agenda calendar.
Thank you, Chair. Have the calendar up on the screen. Next meeting is going to be a third Wednesday, so that's out of the ordinary for you guys. I'll probably put the cancellation notice out for our regular meeting, hopefully, tomorrow or Wednesday. Don't be alarmed when you see that. We have to cancel the regular meeting. It will say special meeting, but it says cancellation in big letters across the top. So we are meeting in December. It's just going to be a joint meeting on the third Wednesday. Sean, do we have a site for that yet? I don't know that we do.
We haven't nailed down a site yet.
Yeah.
We probably should.
We probably
I
should.
think we were assuming it would be on this campus, possibly over at the recreation center, because it's got a little more elbow room. But I guess we need to nail that down.
Yeah.
Let people know.
So we will
Oh, it's not at Bellhaven?
let you know soon.
It could be at Bellhaven as well. We just haven't actually confirmed the location yet, so it's a good question.
That's egg on us.
Yeah.
For bringing it up without.
Okay.
Would there be
having
interest in having it at the?
I guess I assumed it was gonna be at Bellhaven, because it was a joint
Mhm.
thing and we talked about next year, we would do it in May and December.
We can certainly do that. We just
But,
have to make it so.
It's a good location for it.
and will we actually, I mean, I know it's gonna be a sort of a social time, but, is there like who's gaveling, who's which?
There can be some business at those joint meetings. I will reach out to both chairs and sort of hash it out with you guys before.
Okay,
Likely there won't be too much business, though we are going to hear some business from the ad hoc subcommittee, so we'll probably put that up front. I know the staff have been pulling together a kind of year in review statistical report for both commissions so that you can see some of the monthly stats that you've been getting and a little more context, so you can look at it for the year. I think Sean had an idea of like an annual report for the department every year, and this is our kind of first swing at that. So we'll have
Okay.
that, but other than that, I don't think the PRC has any substantive business.
No.
So
I'm aware of.
it's apt to be a relatively light on business meeting.
okay,
Then in January, fourth Monday, library data presentation, we will have that makerspace user policy up there, and we will have a report out on the library accreditation benchmark update. Staff have been working on that, so we should have something ready for you in January. Stop that.
okay. Do you need to ask for public
I
comment?
do. At this point, if anyone would like to make a comment on item E2, the Library Commission tentative agenda calendar, use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, dialing in, press *9 in the library, rush to that table and grab a comment card and bring it forward. Seeing no comment, back to you, Chair.
Is there any discussion from commission members on the tentative agenda? All right, so now we move to commissioner reports. Any commissioner reports from anybody? I think I previewed to you my report from the foundation, so.
Not a report, but I just want to say it's been wonderful working with you all. I'm so excited for everything that's to come and I look forward to continuing to work with you all. So thank you.
We're really happy to have an insider on the city council. All right, I think we're ready to adjourn. It is 8:20. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kind of.